game-winning drive Christmas special edition. I'm here with Mikey. Good to see you as always, Mikey. But we got a special guest, Mikey. You're not the second fiddle today, man. You're the third fiddle.
What? Why does he get bumped to two?
All right, so hey, we got Casey Bones, part of the RealBro entry. For those maybe saw him on some other shows last week. Casey, welcome, man. It's nice to have you here. Hold on, got a little sound issue. Hopefully that works itself out. Casey, so I really appreciate hearing you talk about Survivor. I feel like as someone who talks Survivor, does content a lot, I'm always looking for ways to like say things in like a smart way or ways that connect to people. And I just feel like listening to you last couple of weeks, there was lots of bars you dropped where I was like, oh yeah, that's like a good way of saying it. That's a good way of saying it. So that's why it's extra cool to have you on. Because we all know how there's like there's different types of Survivor brains, right? And you play Survivor in a way that I like thinking about Survivor. And to like, there's something to who's watching this show are mostly people into that like value style of Survivor. I don't know how many like fans of Survivor are watching. So you might have your competition tuning in today to try to get some reads or whatever. So there's no pressure for you to like say anything smart or strategic. You can totally pull out some psychological warfare on them if you want, man. It's all good. Just putting that out there.
You could also give a false tell.
How about I just tell you this and we can move on. I'm going to take the Bengals. If the Cowboys win, obviously I'm taking Cowboys. If they win, I'm going to take the Bengals.
Ooh. Dude, I've been looking at these entries though, and I don't even know if you're bluffing right now because I watched that game last night, the Colts 49ers, and they might have started acting like that Riley Leonard dude was going to play. And you know, I've seen your entry. I know you could attack him this week, but dude, my head's already spinning from the potential psychological operation you're could be pulling right now.
If we had the Bucks to pivot to, it would be a consideration. But yeah, this makes the most sense for us. I noticed some of the other entries. They can go Bucks, they can go Bengals. We're just pretty locked into the Bengals, and I mean, assuming we get there, I don't want to jinx it, and we still got the Cowboys game to get through, and that kind of tricked us up last year, the Cowboys-Commanders game. So hopefully this year goes better.
Oh, was that your last game last year? The Commanders,
the crazy ass one, yeah. We kind of butchered it. We had 2 entries left, and we were debating on whether to go 1 Commanders, 1 Chiefs, I believe, or save 2 Chiefs for, I believe, was Thanksgiving. We really like the Chiefs on Thanksgiving. So instead of going 1-1 and just trying to like preserve, like we stay in the tournament more often, we just kind of tried to like maximize it. If we get through 2 with the Commanders, we have the Nuts twice on Thanksgiving, and then hope for the best. We thought that was our best chance to win the tournament, but we kind of it busted us out more often, and it did. So.
Yeah, hey, I remember that. That was my last entry last year. Was that game, and I remember too before that game feeling like Washington was a stone cold lock. Like they just weren't going to lose to Dallas that day.
One of the craziest fourth quarters I've ever seen. Just absolute batshit insane stuff from start to finish.
Right, and if you get knocked out of Survivor, that's how you want to go out, right? You want to feel something instead of just like watching the Raiders get smacked by the Browns for the entire game a few weeks ago, or whatever other ways there are.
I mean, we were my boys and I were sweating from a Dave and Buster's in Texas, so there was a bunch of Cowboy fans around. So it's just the end of the game, just me, just like sitting on the floor with Dave and Buster's, absolutely fucking devastated, while these Cowboy fans around us are just celebrating their asses off for no reason. So yeah, it was an experience.
I was gonna say, if you have a handful of tickets or whatever, Dave and Buster coins, but no more Survivor entry.
Nah, I just threw that shit
away. Yeah. Hey, so thinking about that game last year, the Dallas-Washington game, and my my read of like, oh, they were such a lock that day. I know you approach the game from like a value point of view. I know you've been playing Survivor as long as Circa's been around, so I know you've been thinking about this stuff. But after all these years, I'm curious how much the ball reads creep into your analysis. Like, week one, when if you have some buddies and everyone has 10 entries, maybe it's easier to be like, oh, I'm going to throw one on this and one on this. But obviously, it's a little harder at this point of the year. But I'm just curious how you think about that stuff, ball reads, and if you have to fight to keep them out of your process sometimes, or what.
So I've always been of the opinion that I do not have ball reads better than the market. So to me, like if the market says the Eagles win 80% of the time, then they just win 80% of the time. I'm not in the NFL. Like I'm not in the locker room. I can't tell you someone who might be injured, who everybody else doesn't know is injured. I don't know any of that stuff. I try to approach it from a game perspective. And I know that's not like the sexiest way to look at it for people who are just like big football fans. But like I kind of approach it as I try to play, it's almost like a board game or a strategy game, right? But I get to watch the NFL to sweat out the results, which I love. Like I love watching the NFL. I think I'm decently knowledgeable, but I'm not going to be able to beat the market. I'm not going to be able to beat, professional handicappers. I'm not going to be able to beat market makers. I'm just not that deep into the game. I think any advantage that I might have is just kind of understanding the mechanics of Survivor. So, there's three parts of Survivor, right? There's a usage percentage, there's a win percent, and then there's future value, right? By assuming that I can't beat the market, that just takes one variable out that I have to worry about. Like I don't have to worry about like, oh, how does Seattle's defense match up with a team that attacks cover 2 or whatever? Like that's so into the weeds, and I'm not going to get that far into the weeds. I like to just focus on what does this pool like to do? Does this pool like to take chalk? Does this pool right now is particularly sharp? So how would someone who is sharp and someone who's willing to take a dog on Thanksgiving, how would they approach this week? That's kind of how I approach it, and just try to figure out my opponents, figure out the pool, and then leave the ball knowledge stuff to, if there is someone who is, an ex-college football coach who's in the pool or whatever, they can use their ball knowledge. I'm a poker player. Like I'm not going to beat the ball knowledge guys on ball knowledge.
Hey, great answer. Sorry, Mike, I might have intercepted you right there, but it made me think of something good, which is, or you said it's less sexy to play that way. Oh, just looking at the game itself. But my feeling is like that approach is actually more like scalable. Like more people can have a fair chance by playing this way than trying to be the ball guy who gets like stuck on the chalk way too often without realizing it. I think, like the value approach, once you get over once you can accept in your heart that the market's smart, then it really opens up the game to everyone, because you don't have to have the special knowledge. You don't have to watch the injury reports. You just have to see the lines and guess what everyone else is doing. And that's kind of enough to not be making huge mistakes, kind of.
I think on our first episode, we were, I remember talking about this, and we were talking about like Survivor in general, and like, do you need to know football, all that kind of stuff. And, I think I remember saying that you and I would be willing to do a Survivor League if it was like Chinese badminton. The fact that it's like, I'm with Bones on this one. Like, I feel like I'm a huge believer in market efficiency and all that stuff. And like, maybe I have a slight lean one way or another, but like that, I'm know for sure that that's meaningless. Borne out over tens of thousands of bets per.
Yeah, but when you get one right, it doesn't feel meaningless. It feels like, yeah, I knew that was going to come on. They were going to coach them up real good in the offensive line, and it feels good.
It's amazing the positive or negative reinforcement you can get in a 2-outcome situation. It's like it's like if you bet red in roulette and it comes red, you're like, I knew it. I knew that was going to be red. When it's like, you shouldn't be the enthusiasm that you have for picking correctly. is not indicated by the number of probabilities or number of possibilities that could have occurred.
Yeah, hey, I hear that. One thing too, thinking about, or I just remember this about the ball knowledge stuff and not having any ball knowledge. There has to be spots where it gets so close that the value argument like isn't enough, and you have to rely on ball knowledge. Just as an example, this Christmas it looks like it's going to be 5 Washington, 5 Dallas, 4 Washington, 1 Minnesota. But there's some ways the lines can change where like Minnesota could be a lot less of have a higher win percentage than Washington, but Washington has all the leverage value because all the people are on the Cowboys, right? And like there's some times where the math makes it seem really close, and you might just have to go with some ball knowledge. Or Casey, do you think there's always a way where you can find the math answer and you never would have to factor in ball knowledge for the rest of your Survivor career?
I personally do what I can to keep ball knowledge out of my picks. Because like Mikey said, like it's so easy to think that you know something, to think that you recognize some pattern in the game, to think that you recognize like Tua is playing at the Jets, Tua is trash in cold weather, whatever, and they just lights off. There's so many ways that you can second guess yourself, and there's so much randomness in football that you can think you see a pattern, but it's a 2-game sample size or it's a 3-game sample size, which is literally nothing. It's meaningless. And if you try to draw inferences from that, you're going to be chasing your tail. You're not going to actually be doing anything. So to me, I personally get more pleasure out of playing the game itself, out of playing, like trying to guess usage rates, trying to do all this stuff, trying to like run the simulations, trying to plot out the future. I enjoy that way more than trying to figure out, like I said earlier, how Seattle does against 2 deep coverage or whatever. But if you look at like casual NFL bettors, they like that stuff. They like thinking that they've figured out the game. They like thinking that they've figured out that like Tampa is terrible when they go to Chicago historically. Whatever. That's where the casual player enjoys. And that's why I kind of said it wasn't as sexy to the average bettor, because like they like trying to think that they are solving the NFL by watching it. They think that they've watched the Steelers every game this year. They know how the Steelers are going to perform against a team like Seattle or whatever. And like, I understand that aspect of it, but the 3 of us, we all kind of grew up, so to speak, on 2+2, right? We all grew up kind of like looking at things very analytically, not thinking about like your favorite poker hand. You're trying to think of like situation and ranges and all this stuff. Whereas the average poker player is like, I just never win with ace king. So I'm just going to play ace king in the most horrific way possible because emotionally I can't handle it. Right. So I think that's kind of what separates how guys like you and I and Mikey and others think about the game as opposed to like the casual fan.
Yes, I hear that. What do you think about that, Mikey?
For me, it kind of reminds me of like if you were learning to play backgammon and you, instead of learning like the nuance of each position in backgammon, you spent all your time like working on throwing the dice to try to like, come up with double sixes more often than your opponent. Like, I guess you could do that, and I suppose, but like, chances are you're just going to throw it and it's going to be exactly a random distribution.
Right. It sounds like a waste, but if there was the one best backgammon player in the world, maybe they know how to.
Maybe, yeah. I don't want to like discount that, and I even Bones even said like it's certainly possible that somebody could have a leg up on spreads and money lines and that kind of thing and pricing and accuracies, and I'm sure that exists, but for me, I've just seen it for 2 decades that magically the teams that are 80% favorite or 7-point dogs or whatever just so happen to win at the rate that they're prescribed to win at.
Another example, let's say that you're practicing throwing sixes and you get really hot throwing sixes, right? Now you think that you solved backgammon and you start to ignore all the other strategic parts of it, thinking that I just can go back and throw sixes and that's going to be how I'm going to beat these people. In reality, you just ran really hot for 20 or 30 throws. And instead of actually learning the nuances of backgammon, you just rely on hitting these sixes, which just happen to be a random sampling.
Yes, too. That also, you're talking about from like a individual player's point of view and how they might learn to get ahead in this. But like every season in Circa, since Circa's the biggest, it creates new survivor like lifers. It creates new people who want to come back with more entries year after year, bring some friends. And this, like every year is a new wave of people who are kind of born into a different mindset, right? Like I think, 2023, lots of people who went deep that year think about Survivor way different than you think about Survivor, because of what team survived and which brains like made it forward to like claim the jacket and all the glory.
Well, I can say this, that if a similar situation arises in Thanksgiving next year, where this year we lost like 97% of the field on whatever. I would bet that the total amount of the field lost, if the same situation were to occur next year, would be like 90% or something like that.
I mean, yeah, the dog math, like just the fact that all the dogs won and everyone on VSiN has to talk about it. Like, oh yeah, not only did it happen, we actually saw it happen, but all the poker players who've been saying they know how to play the Survivor, and we all they're dumb. They all just won the 18 million, and dang, that like that'll change people's minds, right? But also this year, this year is going to create more Survivor lifers, so to speak. Than so many people survived all the weeks. So many people got a taste of it. Just like you, Mikey, you had some entry, and all your squad's like, dang, we need some more entries. That was fun.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to bring up. But in saying that, yes, like my group wants to have 10 entries next year, and so I was like, fine, but I don't know that we're going to be capable of collectively firing it on the dog in the same situation. So we even talked about that, and they wanted it taken out of their hands. To some extent, they were like, well, let's just let Mikey, make a pick or something like that, instead of like collectively voting, because that was the kind of the saving grace for this year. We got knocked out by the Packers or whatever. And I felt like, man, if we could have got that, maybe we would have snuck through till the end. But then on Thanksgiving, I was like, oh, there's absolutely no chance that a group of 10 people were going to collectively vote to take some 7-point dog or something like that. So
you still have to be able to pull the trigger. Like you can theoretically know, like, hey, the right play is to take the dog. But like when it comes down to it, you have to be willing to accept that I'm just going to lose this, 68% of the time, and I'm going to be out of Survivor, and I have to watch everybody else play. Like in my group, there's 2 people that make the decisions, and there's other investors or whatever. And when we told them, several of them were like, why are we just setting these entries on fire? What are we doing? This is dumb. You're joking, right? And, I explained to them, and luckily, they trust, my decision-making enough. But like, I think that poker players have done so well in these Survivors. I think Galen had mentioned that he won, right? Not just games, but like in poker, you have to make decisions where if you're playing poker tournaments, you're going to bust most of the time. You have to make this, you're like in cash games, you get pot odds, you're going to lose most of the time, but you're getting the right price and the result is worth it enough that it makes it a good play. And I think poker players are, I don't want to say uniquely suited, but more suited than the average person to understand that like this is the right play, but it's not going to work out most of the time. But when it does, it's going to work out really well for you. And that is a very difficult thing for non-gamblers who just love football to pull the trigger on, because Survivor is fucking fun, right? It's fun to be in this contest. It's fun to sweat it every week. And it's so much more fun when you're still in the contest than when you busted taking a dog and you're like, what am I doing? Why am I taking a team that's going to lose 70% of the time? So I think it will change, and I think more people will understand that it's a correct play to take dogs. But I don't think it's going to change that much because it still takes a lot to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and also how many, like, we saw it this year, not just so many more people surviving longer, even though they didn't all make it to Thanksgiving. Lots of people survived long, and then the Thanksgiving happened. But next year, let's say we have 25,000 entries. How many of those entries would be willing to get there on a dog? Do you think it's most entries, or do you think it's like a fraction, or
No, infinitely small.
Yeah, Mikey. No way that's true, dude. It's the way it's blown up is all these poker players who want to fire 10, get their friends. Like everyone, the thing that makes the contest grow the most is not more players. It's players going from 1 entry to 5 entries to 10 entries.
Okay.
So that keeps happening. If every player on average has 5, 6 entries, then they're going to be on average more comfy putting a dog in the right spot. Maybe.
If that was true, I mean, we have the biggest possible sample size of poker tournaments. If you use poker tournaments as an analogy, it's not like a random subset of people that just, constantly end up at a final table.
Yes, but this in Survivor, you get a week to make your decision, and there's a bunch of people like us, all us three, going out there talking about what we like and what we think is smart to do, and like, oh, we're good at Survivor, so maybe listen to us. And people have a week to figure it out. Not saying that we're changing it, but just in general, the world is the world does this more, and you have a week to figure it out with all the resources. And as the stakes get bigger, people put more time into figuring out each week. I wouldn't say it's small at all. If I'm still waiting for Bones' answer, but it might be like 60% of the field, 80% of the field. I don't know.
Would you want to take a dog?
But have it in their heart, have the toughness to do it, because obviously a lot of the people with single entries will never do it, but more and more of the field is going to be from a person with 10 entries. Like,
but it's still like it's still hard to pull that trigger. I would be shocked if it was more than like 25%. I think there's a big part of this field that, given the current makeup of it, just can't win. And you see a lot of it, even I don't want to shit on anybody here, but even post Thanksgiving, so many people took the Bucks when it was just going to be a terrible play. And these are presumably sharp people, but they got past that hurdle and they still wanted to be in the chalkiest spot possible. Yeah. And maybe you could say that they're giving up a little because they want to be conservative because their entry is so good down the road. That's fine. But I'm saying that in the end, they still took something that was super chalky after the field had already been sorted by people who were willing to take the dog. So I think that, like, Atlas has, I'll give you guys a shout out. Atlas has made my life infinitely easier as far as doing Survivor. Like,
sweet, man.
So much. Like, I used to have to run EV calcs and Excel, the biggest fucking pain in the ass you can imagine. But now, like, with Atlas, it's amazing. Like, if anybody is on the fence about getting Atlas, do it, pay it. It more than makes up for it in value.
Hey, thank you so much for saying that, dude. Hey, and that alone is just going to make us raise prices a tad next year. So you did it to yourself. Anyone mad about that? Thanks, Casey, for that.
I'm honestly happy to pay. It's so worth it.
Hey, appreciate it, man. It is cool. Like, especially talking to you, where I knew you were playing Circa in 2020. Like, besides Craig, you're the only person I know who's been playing that long. And like, to have the idea slowly grow from there and like see what people were going to need in a few years, it does feel pretty cool. So thanks.
I want to say that Atlas is. So I think I used Pool Genius before and used their site for like EV calcs and stuff like that. But they didn't have all the features that Atlas does. And I think what's really cool is that for the first few years, there was no 2+2. There was nothing for Survivor players to kind of get together and talk strategy, to like weed out the bad ideas. So it was basically, you're kind of seeing a bunch of people who had their own ideas, who had, what they thought was good, what they thought wasn't good. And they've all kind of come to this point. So like, I was super interested to listen to Galen Hall's interview on, I think it was Last Man Standing, to hear you guys talk about it, to hear Chris talk about it, just to see how our ideas matched up with their ideas, and kind of to see how things, like how close to correct we were. Because like you and I had talked a little bit during the season, occasionally, and we talked about the value of future compared to like current EV and stuff like that. And, picked each other's brain, which I thought was really cool. But like, there's just not that many people out there, and there's not like a hub for it. And I think Atlas is kind of becoming that place to where like you can go on there, you can You can do the EV calcs. Everybody has the look ahead stuff. They have all the futures, all the historical data, which is really cool. Because like if you want to dig in there, you can kind of backtest some of your ideas. See how the pool picked on like heavy chalk days. See how the pool picked on holidays. So that's been just a great resource and a great way to kind of like backtest everything for me. Just things that I kind of like intuitively thought about.
Awesome, Doug. And I'll say just a little teaser. We're building some new shit, man. We're not stopping. We got some plans next year, so I can't wait to share them with you when they hit the internet. So get excited.
I want to go back to something Gabe said before, which was about like the time that you have to make your pick. And I think that's a factor, but I think it's less of a factor than you're thinking. Because like if the three of us collectively played Magnus Carlsen and we had a week to make our move, we're gonna get smoked.
Dude, we got it. We can take it.
No, so
we can use. We'll make chess atlas. Do some chess robots. You know, we'll look at them all week long.
All right. I mean, if you want to cheat, fine. But like, you know, if you could give us a month and a half per move, and we're still gonna get worked.
Okay, yeah, but Survivor, you can use anything at your disposal, right? You can use Survivor Atlas. You can't use the chess sims in whatever you're talking about.
There's also a more finite amount of ways that Survivor can play out. Like there's on a given week, there's 4 or 5 choices. Like unless people, you know, we see the first 4 or 5 weeks, people just punt their entries away, right? On week 1, they'll take a 7-point dog because they think they're going to win it in week 1 or something, or they'll just sleep the entries. There's no picks for the first 6 or 7 weeks. But as you get deeper, like coming up, there's the next week there's Bucks, Patriots, but only one person can take the Patriots, Bengals, and maybe Steelers. But now that's kind of out of play. There are different ways that it can play out, but it's honestly the last 4 weeks we've just had our there's nothing else that we can do other than take these 4 games that we've taken the last 4 weeks. There's no other once we set it up like a few weeks ago that this is how the season was going to play out. Barring injury, like it was always going to be Texans last week, Cowboys, most likely Bengals, Jets, and as exciting as this is, I feel like this is all just sweat for me. Like there's no more decisions. There's a decision to try to like hedge and negotiate with swaps and stuff like that. But like as far as picking the teams, like our entry just plays itself. I can't claim that we're making any brilliant moves. It's just this is how it worked out.
That's kind of what I remember. I told my friends or some people that had asked me, is that a lot of times by the time you're at week 15, 16, 17, it's like a lot of your decisions were made in like week 3 when you took this team. So it sets you up. So like if you took this team in week 3, it means you're taking this team in week 16 or, some sort of correlation like that. So like a lot of it's out of your hands. But I also wanted to mention like, we're talking about like taking the dog and like, in certain situations. And of course that's, how all of us ended up in this situation. But like, I wonder if that's going to translate to where like you just said in week 1, the team or some entries on like a 7-point dog and they're like, oh, damn, I'm bounced. And you're like, it doesn't quite work that way. Like you're not just going to like shove it on, a random 7-point dog in the middle of the season when you have, a 16-point favorite at your disposal or something.
What's your point? Or what? I lost what you're trying to say.
Just that like we were talking about how teams are going to, are more teams going to be willing to stick it in on a dog. And like, yes, of course, there's a time and a place to do it and where it makes sense. But I'm wondering if that's gonna go for some people go the other way where they're like, all right, week 3, let's just get it in on the, Dolphins plus 9.5.
Yeah. It won't be that bad, but it is interesting I think it's interesting to think about when the dog, one of these years, one of these spots, it'll be a classic good dog spot, but it'll be too popular. And I forget if we talked about this before, but on the show, but Casey, during the Bet Bash seminar. We had a Survivor Bet Bash seminar, and we did a
Oh,
game where it's like Survivor, but there's only one game to choose from, and it's 50-50. So like, which side do you pick? Just like a little meta game thing. And then the second game was where it was 60-40, a weighted coin flip. So if it's Survivor, who do you pick? And then, we talked so much EV before that most of the class picked the underdog there on the 60-40 because they're trying to win the game, and Gabe was talking about EV. And like, it's hard for that to happen. It's probably not going to be the point where there's more dogs than the favorite, but like Christmas this year, I think Atlas projected Bears at 3%, which is a kind of a high, crazy projection for a +7. But how many years until like half the field is going, dang, I might pick Chicago, or I have to roll for it, or something like that.
We did a lot of work on Thanksgiving. It was the most that my partner and I have ever worked at a spot, and the fear was that this is such an obvious play that if it gets to like 8%, it's trash.
Yes.
It's absolute garbage at like 8% where it's a huge punt. So we were a little bit worried that it was too obvious of a spot.
Yeah.
And but like had that pool been this pool, it would have played out differently. That pool been made up of however many of the remaining 10 people in this, right? If there's 800 versions of these 10 people, that plays out much, much different. And it's kind of the job of us, making these picks to fully understand who is still in the pool, what the pool is made up of. And I think you can kind of notice that throughout the year. Like if it's a very chalky year, then the pool is going to stay very chalky. This year was quite chalky. Last year, I think, was it like 97% were out in the first 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And we kind of assumed that pool would end up being a bit sharper than a usual pool. This pool, it was a bit slower to start off, so you end up with more people who are just chalking it up.
Yeah.
So we thought that would be a reason that it wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, just looking at the entries and whatnot, like it's hard. It's really hard to get to this point without have made some extra sharp moves. And I don't know who all the entries are. It's kind of funny. There's that one player who had all the entries burn all the favorites going into Thanksgiving, so they were forced onto the dogs because they got an entry still around, and without knowing their story, it's like, what were they up to? Like, were they, you know what I mean? Like, were they planning it, or were they just like, oops? Like, I don't know.
It almost could be like an office pool or something.
I think like week 11 or so, there's the option of taking the Eagles when they were like 11 or 12 point favorites, something like that. I don't have it in front of me. But once you got past that, it became pretty clear that people were saving them for Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I think that was a huge spot this year, right? The Eagles, knowing that they were going to be so popular, and then knowing that you can do math and exploit them. So in your like path to get here, in your process, were there lots of spots where you're doing that? Are you like seeing, week 6, this is the chalk, I don't want to be that. Week 8, this is the chalk. How do you think about long-term when it's early in the season? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, so like kind of looking ahead, there's some like very obvious things where it's like this team is useless except for this week when they're playing the worst team in football and they're going to be 9-point favorite or whatever. And it's very clear that everybody is going to be saving them for that spot because they're mostly useless for the rest of the year. If they're like a 12 or 13-point favorite, like it's tough for that to be losing, right? Even if 50% of the field are on a 12 or 13-point favorite, it's still going to be around neutral EV. But if it's like a 9-point favorite and it's going to be, 50 or 55% on it, that's not where I want to be. So we kind of take those spots and realize like, okay, this is very clearly this spot, but everybody in the world is going to be on them. So it's not going to be a great spot. How do we pivot from that? Like what are our options for the second or third most used team, which that week, they might only be 11 or 12%, right? So that's kind of how I look ahead. It's like you look ahead, you find the great spots for the teams, and then what are the possible pivots off of that?
Right. I know kind of the easy way I do it is just like when I'm making a bunch of maps and I always end up on the same team on one of the weeks, I'm like, that's not who I want to pick. If all the maps are pointing to the Chargers week 11 or whatever it is, or 13, then going to have to abandon this plan.
Another thing you realize is like, I like to consider myself like a favorite in this thing, but I'm not. There's a bunch of other really smart people in this field. It is unlikely that I'm going to be alone, that I found something that other people haven't found, right? So I try not to think of myself as some genius is going to find this amazing spot that nobody else is going to find. If it's a good spot, other people are going to find it. I just have to hope that it's not too many people.
Hey, well, or that makes sense. But now that it's deep and there's this new wrinkle to the games of advertising your pick or trying to convince other entries to take different things. Maybe you should be working harder at that. Convince everyone to pile on Minnesota on Christmas or something like that. That's new metagame popping up. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you right there. But did you saw Galen trying to convince Juicy Coochie to be on a different team, right?
I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I want to see Galen maybe try another move like that this week. You know, it's kind of interesting with Minnesota. He's on Minnesota probably, and with them being a bigger favorite than Washington, if the Minnesota person could convince all the Washington people to come over, then it's worth more EV to them because their win percentage is better. But it's like impossible to get everyone coordinated, right? Like someone's going to defect and take Washington, and I guess.
So I got on Atlas and I ran a few sims, and it's pretty interesting in that as people jump off of Washington, the group of Washington, their EV improves, but they take such an EV hit getting onto Minnesota that it's almost impossible for it to make it worth it to them. But it's still tempting. They're going to have a better 1% than Washington. So yeah. I think this is a really interesting week. I obviously there's one outcome that I would prefer as far as what people are taking. But like I think it's interesting, and I think the next week is interesting as well.
The last 2 weeks very interesting, especially because we don't know the lines for Week 18. I don't even know if we're going to get them today. Usually we have them Tuesday for the next week out, but Week 18 they might not do that. I kind of forget. But I didn't think Christmas was interesting unless you can get all the 4 Washington people in the same room to all submit the Minnesota pick at the same time so they can trust each other. Because besides that, it feels like there's not much hope for them. There's nothing they can do except maybe some psyops, maybe hit the airwaves and try to get everyone. I mean, there's not even a place you can push people. Kansas City, Galen's not doing that. I'm kind of rambling here, but
I think it's an interesting dynamic because Minnesota's going to have a higher 1%.
Oh, right. Just that makes it a kind of.
It doesn't. But it doesn't matter because all the leverage is on busting people in who have Dallas. Like if all those people switch, if Dallas wins, now you're just 27% and like you gain nothing. You're still in the pool with all the Dallas people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There was, or thinking of how this week is interesting. The thing last week, how doing raw EV calcs wasn't a thing because of the half Christmas, half Washington bracket. That's never happened before in Survivor, right? Have you ever played a pool had to think about that?
No, I think it was just really interesting how this worked out. And I can't think of. I'd have to go back through all the historical data. I can't think of a game that's ever been like this in Survivor, where half the pool's on one side, half the pool's on the other side, and you're playing each other. It's just crazy. It's like it's right, absolute bananas.
I'm thinking like this EV calculator doesn't work for a situation. Like how come? Like we never thought about this before. We got to make an EV calc that now goes into the future when there's a forced like bracketing of the entries.
When
yeah.
When on Vision and on Run It Once, whenever there's like a situation that you're at the turn or even on the river and it comes back and it's like it tells you to fold the nuts or something that's wackadoo like that. It's because like earlier in the hand you did something where there's a 0% of the time you're going to do that with the hand.
Oh,
So it can't calculate that in. So I feel like the solver, the survivor solver, is unable to calculate where it's at now because of too
right. The logic it just didn't consider how
that this could happen. Yeah,
doesn't make sense if half the people are forced against half the other people next week. Like it makes it nonsense almost.
It makes it nonsense leading up to it because, like, for the last 3 weeks, on those of us on I just use the term bracket. Those of us on the non-Washington bracket, I don't care what happens to them. It literally does not matter, other than like the value of swaps or whatever. But as far as the actual EV, like it doesn't like there can be one of them, there can be 5 of them.
Or hold on. I've been having this thought in my head lately about how Atlas isn't good enough at having the variance of the future lines. Like, next week's line's pretty good, but the lines in 3 weeks, sketchy. And what you're saying makes sense if you knew the lines were locked in. But maybe if you had some idea of how much the line could move from this way or this way, then that EV stuff should have been factored in weeks ago, because the bracket gets broken down if people can hop off Washington onto Minnesota, and now all of a sudden you can survive with these people.
That's like a third order variable, right? Like, there's XY speed, and then you start talking about acceleration. You're at the third order or something.
Well, we did have that swing when Mahomes went out, but luckily it just kind of migrated to the other dog, right? I mean, I would assume that Gala wasn't planning on Mahomes being out. Luckily it still kept everything like pretty much in order. Washington is still a better play than Minnesota. Kansas City would have been a better play than Minnesota. But like Galen was the only person on them, so it's Galen and then the 2 brackets, and that didn't change.
Right. I just think about little like if the survivor genie came down and looked at my process and said, your process is not right because of this. That just pops in my head as one of the things that like Survivor Atlas could do better. Maybe that's a big problem in a few years when there's more holiday like head-to-head clashes. I don't know.
A couple years ago, I had someone go through previous lines from the start of the season to the end of the season. Have them look up the average line change from. We used to use Survivor Grid to do that kind of stuff, right? Shout out to them; they were like the original, doing all this stuff. You guys have way more features, but Survivor Grid was the original.
Love Survivor Grid.
Yeah, so they have previous lines, and the way you can look it up is if you go to week 1 and move over to week 17. This was the look ahead on week 1. If you go to week 4 and look ahead to 17, on week 4, this was the look ahead. So we kind of back tested how much the lines moved from throughout the year to try to figure out how much weight we should put into like the late weeks, right? And there wasn't a ton of movement. We tried to factor in for injuries, but that's obviously, not all that accurate. So the lines were close-ish, but not enough to like completely throw them out the window.
Yes, the Atlas, we got the map, and I want to make the blue future kind of have like a shimmering ocean thing based on what the standard deviation of that line should be. But I got to work all off season to figure that out because I don't know how to do it right now. But we'll get to that.
You know how there's like line histories if you like through sports betting, you can track like the history of the line. It would be interesting if there was something like that for Atlas, where you could go back and check like the history of the Dallas Washington line from the start of the year to this year, and watch how the look ahead fluctuated.
Dude, I kind of got that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen this. Let's look at Jacksonville, Tennessee, Week 18. If you double click, you get a little history.
Oh, sweet.
You never seen that?
I haven't.
So
there's always new features. I love it.
We got a lot of features where they're just kind of hidden, and you got to know the password to kind of get them going. But
price per bone just went up.
But this doesn't track all the line like measurements, because you don't get the line. You get it preseason, and then you got to wait a few months until you get the line again. So like we have what the opener was, the last time we saw it was. And then, we have our power ratings to kind of fill out the map. And this is the graph of the power ratings and then what the spread guess is at. So 12.9. We guessed the spread would only be -7, a few months ago. But
is this scraping something, or is this your personal guess?
For what?
So the line, the look ahead from week 4 or whatever, are you scraping something, or are you just like your own power rating? Like, is your -7 in week 4? Are you scraping it, or is this Gabe's?
No. So in week 4, there was no odds for the week 18 anywhere. The preseason we get those crazy future odds, but once the season starts, you don't see those odds again until you get there. So everything from week 1 all the way till now ongoing has been guesses using our power ratings. But it's kind of fun if you double click the cell, you can see our history and see what it used to be and where it's going and kind of how we get the answer that we do.
Great to have Jacksonville in week 18.
Yeah, but are they going to be like resting, dude? Are you diving into all the rest scenarios? Are you into that stuff?
As long as Houston wins this week, they'll have to play, and if they don't, they are going to be competitive for the 1 seed. So we're not too worried about it.
Hey, Tennessee's on a heater though, man.
We'll take our chances.
Just beat Kansas City. Yeah.
We'll take our chances.
Yeah, okay. Hey, I know we're getting near the end today, but I got a list of things. Let me see if I got anything I missed us talking about. One thing, like just in general, you've played all these years, and you said you cashed 2020 in Survivor. Yeah. And I guess you had been playing a little bit before that, but we talked about, or I tried to tie this in earlier, how every year that all the new Survivor players learn things or have like these formative Survivor moments. And like you came into 2025 already having the underdog math knowledge, like having that kind of tool in your bag, right? Like you knew that was possible.
From the Raider Cowboy game a few years back.
That was
we fucked that one up, and then I figured it out.
Yeah, 2021. So I guess on 2020 there was. You must have not had Dallas 2020. You didn't take Washington that day. You weren't an underdog 2020 guy to make it to the end.
The last week, there's no Christmas or Thanksgiving in 2020.
There was Thanksgiving.
Was there? There was a Thanksgiving slate.
I thought so. I feel like I've been seeing people deny that there was a Thanksgiving, but
I feel like I didn't remember it. There was all the weird things where, like, if you don't pick whoever the 2 previous Super Bowl contestants were, you get like an extra $1 million. There's that, but I don't remember Thanksgiving, but I could be wrong. It looks like there was.
Yeah, it was Thanksgiving. There was only 16 or whatever, 17 plus 1. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember a ton about that season. I just remember. So this was back before there were proxies everywhere. We just had a couple of guys in Vegas, and I was having to call them in. And we had 2 guys. One of them slept our entries on one of the weeks and cost us, I think it was like 2 entries or 23K in EV or something. Literally slept at 3 p.m. Could not be bothered to wake up to put our entries in. Very happy that we still ended up winning, but I haven't spoken to him since.
Was that the latest no pick there's ever been?
It might have been. It was a rough one. Yeah, that was tough one to handle. But we ended up getting an entry through, so that was good.
Word. Hey, I just had to fire up the EV from 2020 because you said you learned the lesson in 2021, even though you cashed in 2020. In 2020, you must have been like, I'm a ball knower. I know everything. I don't have to care about EV because we see Washington smoke Dallas on EV that day.
I don't remember what we did, to be honest. And back then, I wasn't running EV counts. We were just kind of ball knowing it. But like, I was working with someone who had won a few Survivor contests throughout the years, who knew enough about Survivor to know that like there's going to be spots like that. But it really hit home for me in 2021.
Right, where you know it going in. You're like, I can see what the field is doing, and I'm earning from them. And it's not about surviving. It's so cool that the word survivor makes people think it's about surviving. I think that's like earning us money long term by people playing wrong. And are you gonna get the blue jacket if you win? Some people don't go out of their way and get measured for it. Is that a priority of yours? No comment.
To be determined. But I will be out there if the Cowboys get through. I will be out in Vegas for the next couple of weeks. So,
are you going to be at Circa with the games, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, we'll be sweating at Circa. Assuming that the Cowboys get through, I'm going to. I'll be at Circa. So if you're going to be there, we'll split together.
Hey, I'm interested. I was kind of penciling in week 18 to make a splash.
I'll be out in week 18 if still in.
You're coming to Vegas week 18, Mikey. That's like 10 days from now.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, awesome. This has been great, Casey. I really appreciate you hanging out with us. And I wish you the best of luck, man. And maybe after all the Christmas games and Sunday games, if the vibes are good, maybe we do it next week again. We'll see what happens. I got a thumbs up. I like that, man.
As long as I'm in, I'm down. If I lose, please don't talk to me.
If I'm out, lose my phone number. I'll see you.
If we bust, I hope that y'all win. Absolute best of luck. But I won't be there sweating with you.
Hey, all good. Thanks again for joining us. And that's it, y'all. Have a great week. Have a great Christmas. And spread some holiday cheer and all that stuff, guys. All right?
Bye.